WTKA, The Ticket, and Ticket TV. We've heard from the players, coaches, and broadcasters. Now it's time to hear from you. This is your show, the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show. Brought to you by Retirement Income Solutions and presented by Alta Equipment Company on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, The Ticket, and Ticket TV. Now, here's your host, Ira Weintraub.
Body up in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Well, here we are. 27-24 is the final score. Michigan State beats Michigan, and we're here on the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show to talk about it on Sports Talk 1050 WTK, The Ticket, online at WTK.com, and on Ticket TV, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and on WTKA.com. Man, this is, we're all in this one together. And so that's what we are here for. This is the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show, brought to you by Retirement Income Solutions, your local Ann Arbor-based investment advisory team, helping to grow and preserve your wealth. That's Retirement Income Solutions, and presented by Alta Equipment Company, Michigan's #1 construction equipment source for sales, service, rental, and parts. Alta Equipment Company. Don't let downtime cost you money. Call Alta at 844-GO-TO-ALTA. And so here we are following the game, and man, Miz, I've had way too many of these, and I'm
tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad.
I'm dead inside.
Too many of these. College football can be so cruel. I mean, think about it. A week ago, going to the game, people were singing the praises of PJ Fleck, and then Michigan wins the game, and then now they're not singing his praises, and then now they're singing Jim Harbaugh's praises, and then Minnesota has a terrible game last night. College football can be very cruel. It can change on you very quickly, and hope can be taken away in 60 minutes of action, or probably less than that. If you go back and watch the game, and well, we had a fun week. I mean, the week was fun, I guess.
Yeah.
But it came crashing down today. Instead of keeping Paul Bunyan here in Ann Arbor, we just watched what is likely the worst loss of the Jim Harbaugh era. I mean, after the game, that's kind of what I was started thinking about in the fourth quarter. As I started having messages with friends and whatever, it's going to be. It has to be the worst game of the Harbaugh era. A week ago, you're talking about great play calling and great execution. We talked about on the pregame show. We talked about the confidence levels that Sam and Steve had in, Joe Milton, a quarterback, and Josh Gaddis as a play caller, and the defense against the run, and the defensive back play, those kind of things. We talked about all that stuff, and after 1 week, it's Can
we go back up to Minneapolis?
Everything changed. Things change a lot, obviously, on a week-to-week basis in college football. This season, needless to say, is going to probably be even more unique than that. But it's, week-to-week things change, and it is all the things that you didn't think that, I think that the things that you didn't think were going to happen were the things that actually did happen. And that happens in football, obviously, the unexpected. And here we are. It's, wow. It's after every game. Right, we always ask the question of what's next. If you put a bunch of big wins together, and you're excited about what the next step is in that winning process. If there are losses, you always talk about whatever is next, and so obviously that's going to come here. And I mean, honestly, barring an 8-1 finish or winning out, whatever that means during this unique season, and that winning out includes beating Ohio State. I'm not predicting. I'm just stating that barring that. This, when you say what's next, I'm not really looking forward to the offseason, to be honest. Like whether it's coaching change or, more, whatever it might be, because obviously, rightfully so, people are, the job calling for is coming out, and, keep the posts coming. We're going to get to as many of your replies as we can in posts on social media. It was a tough one because it was, a week after looking really well prepared and ready to go. This week it's, John, right there. Team was flat to start, no fire. That's a great way to put it, as that message comes across here on Ticket TV. But win, lose, whatever, we're here. We're here for the Michigan fans. And I'm sure there are going to be some coming in. We are not here for the trolls. We're here for the Michigan fans. And so, but I see a lot of familiar names out there as you're scrolling through, and we want to hear from you. You can also call in at 734-998-1050. You can email studio@wtk.com. You can tweet us at Michigan Insider. We are here.
All right. All I'm busy with the phone.
We're gonna get to the phones in just a little bit. We're also gonna get to the comments on social media as well. I mean, many were expecting, and and the comments are coming in about telling Sam not to talk before the game next year, and Sam's gonna have Sam's gonna have the longest week of anybody. Sam obviously talked the most. I teed him up. I'll take that. I admit I teed him up a lot, and it's easy to tee Sam up this week. But I also give Sam credit because even in the years that Michigan was more down than they are, whatever this season turns out to be, Sam has talked like he doesn't back down. So like I'll give him credit for that. But yeah, Sam's gonna have a very long his social. I'm sure I cannot imagine what his social media feed is gonna look like the next X amount of hours, and of course leading into the Monday show and what's gonna happen on Monday morning. He's gonna hear from everybody as much as any but. David has it right here. Our coach can't blame refs for any specific player. It was a team loss. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw a lot of bad things in the game, and Michigan contributed to a lot of them, right? You talk about, when you look at a game and you compare, like, what does one team do versus the other, and you talk about turnovers. Well, turnovers wasn't obviously didn't play a factor in the game. So you look at the next thing, and you look at how did you do on third down, or how did you do on, explosive plays, and that's the big one that was there today. And if one team leads the way a lot more than others in explosive plays, you're going to end up having a game go one way versus the other. Now, obviously, the game is close. It's a 27-24 game. It's not a game that should have been close, but it's. But here we are, and it's going to be a really long week. And I always do know, and I don't take solace in this, but I always do know, as long as a week as it is for us, and it's going to be a long week as fans, and when we, especially if we are here in the state of Michigan and we have coworkers that are, Michigan State fans, or we have friends that are Michigan State fans, it becomes a very long week and a very long year. But it's gonna, it's always the longest inside Schembechler Hall. The question is, there's two conversations about here. There's a long-term conversation after the game, and there's a short-term conversation after the game. And the short-term conversation is, they have to turn around and they have to go on the road to go to Indiana, and we'll see what Indiana does today. Right now, Indiana just took the lead recently. They're up 13-7 on Rutgers in the second quarter down over in Piscataway, New Jersey. So it's in the short term, that's going to be obviously what the conversation is. In the long term, I see what everybody's posting, pointing to when it comes to there's a lot of conversation about the coaches. There'll be a lot of conversations about Jim Harbaugh, a lot of conversations about Don Brown, a lot of conversations about being ready for this game versus being ready for last week's game and what happened between week 1 and week 2. I don't have the answer. We all watched the game in real time together, and we are sitting here in disappointment in real time together because we're trying to have answers. There were moments where there were plays that were there that were not, they just weren't executed, but it just seemed like between the coaching, the offensive play calling couldn't get into a rhythm, and then therefore the offense itself couldn't get into a rhythm. And then on the defensive side of the ball, obviously Michigan State found a couple things that they were able to expose, and they kept exposing it. And Michigan had a very hard time to disguise what their deficiencies are. Go back to the beginning of the season. Sam talked about it. The cornerback position was his biggest question mark. Ambry Thomas leaves. He opts out. He doesn't come back. And he talked about the corner position opposite Vincent Gray, right? It wasn't even about both corner spots, but Vincent Gray obviously had a really poor game today. The double moves, and it wasn't always double moves. He just had a poor game today, and they picked on him, and they picked on Jamon Green, and then they picked on Turner because it's each guy's the next guy. They don't have the next ready guy. We got very comfortable with always having the next corner or 2 or 3 when you have the roll through of with David Long and LeVert, and going back before that Jordan Lewis. And coming through, this was going to be Ambry Thomas's year, and that would have been one side. But it's needless to say, that position was exploited today, exploited in a big way, and that's a big problem moving forward because other teams are going to find a way to. They for whatever reason, it wasn't exploited last week by Minnesota. Maybe that says more about Minnesota. We'll obviously week to week, we're going to find out a lot about each of these teams. Maybe it's hard to explain how a team that did what they did, and we know that 7 turnovers in a game can easily be turned around by not turning the ball over. Turnovers were, again, not a factor in the game today, so that makes certain things very different for Michigan State. Michigan was not able to force those turnovers, but a week after a team loses to Rutgers, turn around and come into your place and beat you, how are you not ready to come out and the slow start and giving up the big plays and not being able, the inability to come up with a counter to those big plays against you? And if in college football this day and age, we talk about all the time where in the end you're going to have games where you're going to get a lot of points scored on the board. Offenses are going to find ways to make plays. If you have Maybe it's because your defense isn't good enough. Maybe it's because the other team just has really good athletes and they're going to make plays. They're going to score, and they're going to put points on the board. And you have to find a way to match. So today was one of the games where the defense wasn't going to have it enough to make it so the offense only needed to score 17 or 20 points to win the game. The offense was going to have to put points on the board. So the defense didn't play well enough to give the offense a game to not score a lot of points. And then the offense on the flip side could not get the running game going in any consistent fashion. They had a flash here or there, but the running game couldn't get going get a consistency going. Same thing with the pass game. There was some real unique play calling around the goal line. I know that if Haskins does throw the ball just a little higher and it's not tipped, it's a touchdown, and maybe we're having a different conversation. But is that play going to be to Josh Gaddis like the halfback option pass Vincent Smith threw a bunch of years ago now down at Notre Dame was for Al Borges? It may go down in lore. It may go down as one of those things that we talk about for a really long time. We have a lot of questions coming out of this game because one of the few things we did not expect to see was, I think we read the word before, flat. And they came out flat. They played flat the entire game, and Michigan State played a better football game. And Michigan got outcoached. They got outplayed, and they take a big L. Paul Bunyan goes back to Michigan State. It's going to be a really long year here in the state of Michigan, and it's Jim Harbaugh has a lot of questions to answer in the post-game press conference, at the press conference on Monday. And obviously there'll be a lot of questions moving forward, as we're going to see, as I can definitely see on social media here, social media elsewhere, and coming up on the phones. We're going to get to your phone calls next. We're going to see your comments on the screen and get to those as well. Hang out during the breaks. They're not going to be nearly as fun as some of the other breaks have been in the past, but we're going to hang out here. This is the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show. Michigan State beats Michigan today, 27-24. Both teams now 1-1 on the season. You are listening on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket, and you are watching on Ticket TV, which is on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and WTK.com/countdown. We'll be right back.
Clear on radio.
Clear on radio. Yeah, I have a lot of times after a game, you can pinpoint and you can be like, all right, the carryover, like what did or didn't. And today I just didn't. It doesn't make sense. It's the blocking wasn't the same, the execution wasn't the same, the play calling didn't seem to have the same kind of. I'm not sure if they were expecting something different from Michigan State. Michigan State came out and and did something that completely shocked them early, and they couldn't recover. And then on the other side, on the defense side, they just obviously got exposed. So it's very frustrating. Raise your hand if you're frustrated. Hello, we're all frustrated, and it's going to be a really long week. And we're going to see a lot of calls for the coaches to get fired. And you know what? Those are fair conversations to have. I don't expect there to be any coaching changes in season at Michigan, and throw in the fact that there's a pandemic going on, and so I just don't expect that to happen. But I do expect those conversations to be had. I'm not going to tell you that you should not say those things. I just understand the realistic situation, so I'm not, there's no reason for me to ask for something to happen that I know in this moment in time. I'm not saying in December or in January. As I said during the segment, it's going to be a very interesting. Be a very interesting January, February if they don't. I mean, beating Ohio State, right? That's the only thing that at this point in time is that can change this. This is the worst loss that I like. The space I can think of. So, yeah, Kevin. It shouldn't take 3 quarters to pull Gray. Last week he was getting burnt to find someone else who wants to compete. I don't care if it's third string kid. Can't do any worse. I mean, they're going to start going through. They're going to start going through more. I mean, they're going to start finding more guys. I don't. Losing Cameron Grome was big, but it didn't seem to have the impact. Like, that didn't seem to be where the issues were in the game. It was obviously in the defensive backfield. And the defensive line, they had a few sacks in the first game. Kwity Paye had 2 on his own. In this game,
I don't think they had any today.
The defensive line, Michigan had 0 sacks. So, yeah, I mean, Michigan only had 2 tackles for loss. I mean, that was one of the big things in the game, and we'll obviously jump into this. You can't continue to shoot yourself in the foot. You can't have a nice play here and then going backwards. And you can't have a nice play here and go backwards. You can't put them in 3rd and long and then, let them get out of it. You can't pin them inside the 10 a couple of times and let them go on really long scoring drives. Those are the things that you do certain things really well. You get the punts that you need. You get the way to, you can flip a game when you pin a team inside the 5, right there at the 2-yard line. You make a couple of plays or 3 plays, punt the ball back out. Now you give your offense a short field. But they just, and I mean, it's the same conversation, Dennis, and Kyle, and we've talked about this for many years, and I'm surprised by how many times I'm surprised by what you end up seeing with the performance.
Too damn bad.
So I'm not going to put the comments on the screen. Some of you on Facebook can see these lies. Not lies. I mean,
All right, stand by.
their opinions.
Okay, so you beat me to it. All right, here we go. Back on radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket, and on Sports and on Ticket TV, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and on WTKA.com. And yeah, it's a tough one. Michigan loses 27-24. We're all disappointed here following the game, and that's what this show generally is about, right? It's the first reaction. You haven't had a chance to go back and rewatch the game. You don't know all the specifics about everything that went wrong in the game, and so it's usually more of a big-picture conversation after a loss as opposed to going into all the very specifics, although you can look through and see what some of the what some of the problems were, and it was a really disappointing game, needless to say. And so we want to hear from you. We're going to get to the comments on social media, but we're going to get to the phone lines here first at 734-998-1050. We're going to talk with Terry in Saline. Terry, good afternoon.
Hey, Ira, how are you doing?
I'm hanging in there.
Embarrassing. That was an embarrassment. And my question, Mel Tucker, people gave him a lot of grief, for taking that job and, stepping into it, and then the way they looked last week. But he came out and he got his signature win. If you could, I know that you're a historian of Michigan football, what is Harbaugh's signature win at Michigan?
I mean, it's a fair question, Terry. I mean, he has wins over teams that have won the Big Ten. His win over Penn State is probably the signature win. Yeah, I got you, Terry. I got your answer. Thanks for the call at 734-998-1050. I mean, I don't. Maybe it's because of how people looked at the game at the time. I don't know, but a dominant win over Penn State that won the Big Ten is probably a signature win. But I understand your point because it's not one over Ohio State. He has wins over Michigan State. I'm not sure any other. There was the road game against a ranked team. That was the first time he went on the road and beat a ranked team. That was a win for him. So that's probably going to go in there as well, a win over Michigan State on the road. But your point is fair because in his second game after losing last week and laying an egg at home against Rutgers, and maybe there was more to the part of the conversation that I did ask Sam early the week, and it was brought up a few times by people over the course of the week, which was, like, we've seen Ohio State overlook like Purdue a few years ago in the past because they're thinking about Michigan. They lose to Purdue in a game they shouldn't lose. Was Michigan State looking past Rutgers, thinking it's Rutgers, and preparing for Michigan and getting ready for this game? I don't have an answer to that, but Michigan State always brings their best against Michigan. It doesn't matter who the head football coach is. You got to give Mel Tucker credit for having his football team ready, and on the other side, the team wasn't ready. And as far as what the signature wins are, a road win, what was that, a couple years ago at Michigan State, or the win at home against Penn State against the ranked team. The Wisconsin win, another ranked team at home. That team that was the same year that they beat Penn State, the one that ended with the Jordan Lewis catch, interception. That would probably go down in that kind of conversation. But again, it's not about – but people want the signature wins to be over ranked teams and ranked rivals. So Michigan State and Ohio State. So, Terry, your point is made. I'm not defending them. I'm just answering your question. Let's go to Delaware on the East Coast. 734-998-1050. Talk to Willie. Hello, Willie.
Yeah, I like to say that this was one of the most embarrassing losses I've ever watched. Why are we running the ball? You ran the ball the last 2 games and we beat them bad. Look at the stat. 256 yards or something like that against Minnesota. You only run for 125 today with 31 attempts or something like that. That's horrible. That's horrible. You got to clean it up, and Don Brown needs to go. Don Brown's crap.
Willie, thanks for the call. 734-998-1050. Email studio@wtk.com. You can tweet us at Michigan Insider. Let's go back to The phones, let's go down to the Glass City. Let's go to Toledo. Talk to Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I just got to kind of echoing some of those sentiments, too. It's a frustrating game. I don't know what practice was like during the week, guys. I was a little concerned because I knew Michigan State was going to come in here pretty loaded up and ready to go. The game planning was horrible. I think anyone who's watched football for more than a couple of years knows this. What I'm concerned about with Harbaugh, and I'm not one of those guys who says, let's fire him and all that, because I think that's just, a knee-jerk reaction. But, you guys, I got to say that I'm a little concerned, and I like Harbaugh as much as anybody, but I'm concerned with his attention to detail, and he's usually on it, okay? But to not at least throw the challenge flag on that one play that was so huge, that third down, if there's any doubt at all, you got to throw the challenge flag. His job is to protect that football team and give them every chance that they can to win the game. I'm so concerned with why he didn't. You say, oh, well, if you don't get it, then you lose a timeout. We still had plenty of time left in the fourth quarter. That play was huge. Even the guys on TV said that did not look like a catch. Now, who knows? With the bad officiating throughout the game, maybe they would have gave it to him, whatever. But you got to give your team a chance. And that was the most frustrating thing that I've seen with Harbaugh today. I don't know what is going on in terms of his preparation, but it's lacking. And this week, especially against a rival. I don't know if they got too many pats on the back against Minnesota. Oh, Joe Milton looks like Cam Newton. Let's get rid of that. The offense, it's executed so great. The play calling was trash today. Absolute trash. The defense, if I could just say this real quick, how do we have a defensive coordinator in D1 football coaching at the highest level who does not know how to adjust in-game to playing man-to-man bump coverage and go into some sort of soft zone or something to protect those DBs? That is ridiculous. You got guys who are getting burned on every play. Hey, maybe we should stop playing bump and run man-to-man when we're not getting any pressure from the D-line. That is ridiculous. Don Brown, again, I'm not saying knee-jerk, hey, let's fire this guy off the cuff, but we've seen this against Ohio State. Can't stop a crossing route. Burned. Can't stop. You can't stop these other patterns that are being run against a bump and run. When you have Lavert Hill and David Long, that's great. When you have Ambry Thomas, that's great. When you have Jordan Lewis, that's great. We don't have those guys. So I don't know what's going on in terms of, can you guys explain to me how we have a defensive coordinator who can't make in-game adjustments to running his own defense? Does Don Brown know how to run his own defense?
I appreciate the call, Mike at Toledo. To answer your question in the second part, I can say they have run zone. Whether they run zone well or not is obviously very much maybe not even up for debate. That's the thing about this show, Miz. After the game, very rarely do I actually have to add. You listen to a guy like Mike at Toledo, and he tells it, and you just kind of sit there and you nod your head, and you're like,
yeah.
And I mean, frustration is apparent in the voice, and it's warranted because it's probably my voice too. You can hear it in Miz's voice. I can see it in the comments on social media. They're coming across here on Ticket TV, in the emojis that are coming across on Ticket TV. Yeah, it's. I mean, Mike said a lot of things in there that I don't really have a whole lot more to add and say that he is necessarily wrong in a whole lot of aspects in how the game played out today.
Yeah, I mean, there really isn't. It was, I kind of have joked around on Twitter today after, Michigan State scored first that, hey, remember, Minnesota did the same thing last week. Well, there was also a lot of pressure that we saw on the defense in that front four. It just seemed like there really wasn't much of pressure, if at all, really, to get through that Michigan State offensive line, to get back to Lombardi. And this is a even though it's a short season, it's still a long one at the same time, where we as fans, we as media members, Ira, that we have to, we gotta go through this, and it's going to be a long, work session for the Maize and Blue before they go down to Bloomington to take on a very impressive Indiana team, and hope that they can pull off. I guess you would say at this point, an upset down in Bloomington.
We'll see how their game today against Rutgers plays out to probably determine, but yeah, it'll probably be considered an upset at this point. It's amazing how quickly from before a season or after one game, and how quickly future lines on games can change on a whim. He brought up the running. Was it Mike or might have been Willie? But the bringing up
Willie
the running and not bringing up and not running the ball enough. Now in the end, Michigan had 34 carries and they threw the ball 52 times. Now they actually probably had a few more than 52 in actual, pass plays. I don't know how many of the I didn't go back and actually chart out yet how many of those Milton runs of the 12 were scrambles versus called run plays. But you get the point that it's still give or take about 34 to 52. And yeah, the problem is, and Klatt talked about this a lot during the game, is they just couldn't establish the run game. In the end, Michigan averaged 4.7 yards per carry, taking the sack yardage out of the game. So they actually had a decent number. But if you go back and look at the runs, you had, a big chunk and a big chunk, but then you had lost yardage. It's almost like Barry, right? Barry used to, spin around in the backfield and then get caught a couple times and have a couple of lost in the backfield. But you never knew which one he was going to break for 20 or for 30 or for 8 or for not, whatever it is. And I'm not comparing Michigan's running, but you get the point, the analogy. And so they had a few of those plays. So the average is boosted because they had some nice runs on the jet sweeps in particular, and they had a few of nice plays, but they could never get the run game really going to sit on that and rely on that. Because it was, when you're in 3rd and long and you're averaging 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 9, I mean, that's going the wrong direction. Like, you can't, it makes it so hard to win football games when you're consistently in 3rd and long because you drop back and defenses come in their ears back. And it makes it really difficult. And I'm very interested in hearing as Sam goes back, because he'll go back tomorrow. And it's much more painful for him in the post game. Again, it's gonna be a really long week for Sam. But he goes back and he'll go through and he'll figure out. He'll be able to go through and look at a lot more specifics than we can right after the game. Right? We can't go, but we don't have enough time to go back. We haven't been able to chart through like what plays were what and what worked, what didn't, what was called at the right time, and what obviously was a bad play. But there were forced throws, there were misreads, there were missed blocks. There were missed assignments on defense. There were, just simple getting caught in, hesitation moves that you should never bite on. Like, just so many little mistakes. We didn't see really any of those mistakes last week. And you thought coming out of the long layoff, no spring ball, and how unique everything was, that if you could come out fairly sharp in your first game, that you build on that for the second game and you'd be sharp in the second game. And they were not sharp today.
Yeah, I mean,
there is no real, I mean, the explanation is like Mike said, like what happened, what was going on inside Shane Becker Hall. We don't have an answer. We just see what the result is. And the result, obviously, from one week to the next is very disappointing. And, I see it in the comments. We feel it in our hearts and our minds right now. We're all very frustrated as Michigan fans following that one, a 27-24 loss to Michigan State today at Michigan Stadium. Let's go back to the phones. One more call here in this segment. We'll go to Troy. Troy, good afternoon.
Hey, Ira, how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Hey, can you explain to me, I've been on this show for years, and I've called for Jim's job since 2016 when he was calling for, he did play action out of his own end zone at Ohio State. This dude doesn't do anything, all right? And these people and this administration and some people at this station, you guys empower him, and you guys are going to give him a contract extension, and these people are going to pay hard-earned money. Why in the hell is his Haskins getting 6-7 yards a pop, and all he gets is 5 carries? You're doing wildcat, back-to-back plays with Joe Milton, your best player, in the red zone. You're throwing Hassan Haskins are throwing passes. I'm tired of this crap. You guys want to sign him to a contract extension? Y'all do it. Knee-jerk reaction. I've seen this for 5.5 years. This is nonsense. He should be fired 25 minutes ago. You know what? I'm tired of this. If you guys want mediocre football, that's on you. This is garbage. $40-50 million. This is what we did. 1-4 bowl games, 3-3 versus Michigan State, 0-5 versus Ohio State. I hope Ohio State hangs 100 on us, man. And you know what? It embarrasses the school and the program even more. And you know what? There should be people calling this show tomorrow morning and on Monday begging for this dude to be fired. I hope he gets an NFL job because this is a bunch of nonsense.
Thank you, Troy. I do think you give us a little too much credit that we here at the radio station sign people to contract extensions at the University of Michigan, but I thank you for giving us that kind of power that we actually don't really have. But Troy, always passionate. Great to hear from you, Troy. Appreciate it. At 734-998-1050. You can email studio@wtk.com. You can tweet us at Michigan Insider. This is the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket and on Ticket TV.
Clear on radio.
I love passionate Michigan football fans. Michigan fans are passionate.
I mean, I don't begrudge anyone for being passionate, and I know we're getting a lot of a lot of comments on social media, from YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. I totally understand where a lot of you guys and gals are coming from.
Yeah, I mean,
at the same time, we're coming what, an hour and change after.
No, that's what. But Miz, that's okay. It's okay. Anger is fine. As I've said this many times, and I'll say this to the 100+ people that are watching on the stream right now, on whichever platform you're watching. I don't. I will never tell you how to feel. I try not to get angry about things that I really have no control over, but I don't. I will never tell someone how to feel. I mean, those are your feelings. If you want anger, frustration. I think in the end we're all frustrated, and then it's how it manifests itself. Does it turn into anger? Does it turn into drunkenness? Does it turn into taking a nap? Does it turn into turning off the rest of the season? Like, everyone has their own, like, how you deal with the frustration of the loss turns into how does it manifest. And I would, however you feel, I'm not going to tell anybody if, as Dan says, anger after this is warranted. I have no problem. I don't see. I'm not going to tell you how to feel. And, Troy has, as Kyle says, he unloaded. Troy has done that before. That's, we have never told someone not to call in and told not taking their opinion. But we're here for it. It's Sheldon Asai. It's hazard pay. I've been doing this for a long time now. It's okay. It's I mean, Dan, you're not wrong. The offense, I am confused. I have a lot of questions, and so I need to ask. Like, that's the thing, is I just watched the game, and so we all kind of have the same questions, and it's more of a generic, like, what happened, like, right? And then you're trying to get more specific than that. It's you really do need to go back. So it's like, to me, I'm still just I don't have the answer to what happened, other than, like, they played poorly. We got that. They coached poorly. We got that. Like, so we know that part. But what's the answer to that? Was it one or two specific guys that couldn't block? Was it, specific reads that were missed? Was it just forcing throws, which we saw a bunch of forced throws? Like, and that's the offensive side of the ball. And on the defensive side, obviously we know, here, got a comment here, right? Don Brown is going to suddenly become a cover 2-3 guy. He does throw a little bit of zone in. But on every play, pretty much at least one guy is in man, but there should be help, right? Like, so.
All right, we're back on radio in about 30 seconds.
Frustrations are coming in. And I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. We're all frustrated.
All right, stand by. Back live on radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show on Sports Talk 1050, WTK The Ticket, online at WTK.com, including on Ticket TV, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and on WTK.com. Keep those comments coming. We're talking about them during the break. We're on our Ticket TV stream, and we're getting to some of those comments online on the radio show here as well. As I said, the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Wrap-Up Show is brought to you by Retirement Income Solutions, your local Ann Arbor-based investment advisory team, helping to grow and preserve your wealth. That's Retirement Income Solutions. And presented by Alta Equipment Company, Michigan's #1 construction equipment source for sale, service, rental, and parts. Alta Equipment Company, don't let downtime cost you money. Call Alta at 844-GO-TO-ALTA. And here we are. It's, we're lamenting a loss, and really it's more of a big picture conversation, I think, than we are about specifics in the game. But, the specifics in the game seem to be a microcosm of things that are then that big picture conversation. So let's go back to the phones at 734-998-1050. And let's go to Chi-Chi in Manchester. Good afternoon. Good early evening, Chi-Chi. How are you?
All right. So, yeah, hey, guys. You're doing a great job. I know it's hard to take it as your position from – you got to be upbeat. I did like some of the play calling, but I thought it was the best of what we had to offer in regards to the defense was very good on Michigan State's side. They did put some stops. I would like to see, instead of 3 and out, I'd like to see us go for it where there's 3 yards or 4 yards, because you got to have confidence. Last year, too, they did this in that offensive line. But moving forward and getting ready for Indiana, I think we could all learn from our mistakes. I don't believe that you need to get rid of a coach after 5.5 years. And I just don't think that that's the right position to take with a great coach that Jim Harbaugh is and his recruiting staff and the people he has. If we're going to criticize, let's take a real good look in the mirror and talk about every day we go into work that we may make mess our day up by doing something wrong. We call people out, but at the same time, we need to understand, too, that tomorrow's another day, and let's work on what our mistakes are. I'll take my phone call off the air. Thank you guys for all you do.
Well, Chichi, I appreciate the call at 734-998-1050. And I mean, there's two parts of the conversation. One of it is, as whether it's as a fan base, but it's as fans, we'll be in the conversation about big picture probably a lot more this week than about the moving on to the next game part. But that is a separate part of the conversation because there are 6 more games scheduled plus that extra game at the end to get to the 9 games that are scheduled to be played this season. So there is the conversation about what needs to be fixed or what can you do to mask your deficiencies. And, Miz, I kind of go back to what I said at the beginning where we've been here a lot in the past and we've had these conversations. They've been different every year. I mean, even if you talk about the Rich Rod years or the Brady years or the Jim years, every year there's a difference. How do you mask your deficiencies? Because there's somewhere on your squad that is deficient. If there was no deficiencies in your squad, you would be playing, in the playoff and playing for Big Ten championships. And so how do they mask those deficiencies? And if it's a coaching thing that exacerbates things, and they don't seem to be having the fixes to mask the inexperience they have on defense. And I think that's one of the things that we learned from going last week to this week. Well, there are a few things. One, what we learned is there are many cardinal rules when you watch college and pro football. And one of them is you never overreact to week 1. Go back to week 1 of the NFL season and see how certain teams did. And I haven't gone back to, but every year, inevitably, a team goes 1-0, has a great game, and they go 6-10 or something like that. It's just inevitable. And the same thing in college football. And if you go back to this week, we're going to go back and some of the things from week 1 in the Big Ten, we're going to go, wow, that doesn't actually make sense to how the season played out. And then we're going to go to other things. Well, that's exactly how things looked like they were going to play out. And from week 1 to week 2, what Michigan did to Minnesota, and then when you see how Minnesota played against Maryland and what happened in the Michigan State game, we learned a lot. And you learned that what we thought about going into the season about a few of these teams, obviously at least through week 2, definitely not where they are right now and where they should be. And it was. The frustration's there, needless to say. I get it. Chichi, I like that you're looking ahead and see, fix what you can fix and get ready for the next game. But I don't think that's what the conversation is going to be for the next 7 days amongst the fan base. And this is where the conversations dramatically changed between what happened with after week 1 to week 2. Everyone in Schembechler Hall is talking about how to get better to week 2 inside. The fan base, same thing, how to get better for week 2. And now here after week 2, inside Schembechler Hall, they're working on getting ready for week 3. But outside, I don't think there's going to be a lot of talk about week 3 as much as going to be talk about what happened, what went so wrong to get to the point where we are that we're sitting here at 5:30 on Halloween and Michigan loses to Michigan State 27-24. Let's go back to the phones at 734-998-1050. Let's go to stay in Ann Arbor. Let's talk to Mark in Ann Arbor. Hello, Mark.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Doing all right.
All right. Look, there's a couple things that's going on with the team, and it's got to go back to the heart. There is no heart because nobody is forcing the kids understand the heart that's involved in playing football. Michigan State came in and they had heart. They played with heart. They wanted to have a victory. We came in and we just thought we could get a victory. But where's the heart? That comes from the coaching. So I'm like some of the other callers. I'm a little bit concerned with Don Brown. I don't know if he is capable of doing what's necessary because we didn't even get to that quarterback. Okay? He had all the time in the world to throw the ball. We didn't have any pressure. They didn't make any adjustments to change that. They dominated our defense, and they picked on the corner. Now, why didn't we move the safety over? Why not move the safety over? What's the problem there? That's an easy fix, right? Give this guy a little help. Move the safety over. But I'm concerned because I don't think we have the heart. And when I say that, I'm talking about the heart of Bo Schembechler. Bo had the heart. Go out here and kick these boys' butt. We're not doing that anymore. We're playing schematics and schemes and all these adjustments and all this bouncing around on the defense. It's not working. Get in your position, be prepared, and react to the ball. What happened to that? That's my question.
I appreciate the call there. 734-998-1050 from Mark in Ann Arbor. He threw a lot out there. I have a really hard time talking about comparing the way that things were played when Bo was here versus the way things are now, because things are really different. They're really, really different. And Bo never played for a national championship. He won a lot of Big Tens, but things are really different. And things are about scheme now. And I know you have to be tough, and I get that. And there's a certain level of toughness in football, or a big level of toughness in football. But football is also about scheme. I mean, Michigan State had a really good scheme today. That's one of the reasons why they won. I mean, was it tougher? I mean, I have to go back and watch the tape but at the end, scheme is what football. I mean, that's what football is today. And so it's really hard to make the comparison of what they were doing in the 70s and 80s and what's going on now. Football is a much different game. It's a much different game. Appreciate the call. 734-998-1050. Is it Greer in Pennsylvania? We'll go to Greer in Pennsylvania. Hello. Good afternoon. How are you?
I've been better.
I hear you.
So it's kind of at a loss for words. I listen to you guys, one, every day. Two, I listen pregame with the TV on mute, and then I go right to you guys after games. And I just have a couple of things to say. So going into the game after last week, I was encouraged, very encouraged, because last week we went on the road in a rivalry game. And, I don't need to tell you about how iffy it is when we go on the road, and looked convincing, and I was excited. And then I was extra excited seeing Michigan State lose to Rutgers. And then last night I saw the Maryland game, and I'm thinking, oh, wait, if Maryland hung 45 on Minnesota, how good is Minnesota and how good was that win? But I was still confident because talent usually takes over. For example, the BC-Clemson game today. I mean, BC may have played the most perfect game of their lives, and they still lost because talent just eventually takes over. I don't understand why that didn't happen today, because if you come into the game blind, it didn't look like Michigan was the more talented team, but obviously they seem to be. And I'm curious to why they seem to abandon the run so much or so early. It kind of felt like we were down. We were calling plays and running plays like we were down 30 when the game's tied. I agree with Troy. I mean, Haskins looked great. I don't know why he didn't get the ball a little bit more. I know we got in some third and long situations, but I don't know. 50 attempts seems to be a lot in a game that you're never really out of. And my last point, and then I'll let you. I'd like to get your opinions on this. So I'm watching on BTN. I forget when it was, but the '97 Michigan-Ohio State game, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, man, this field is littered with NFL players, like long career NFL players. And I'm thinking that's what Clemson does. That's what Alabama does. That's what Ohio State does. And then I'm like, we need NFL talent. And then I see a tweet that has the results from last Sunday. And I think there's 11 NFL players on our active roster right now from last year's team. So we're getting the NFL talent. Why? There has to be a disconnect somewhere, and I'd like your guys' opinion on that, because I don't think it's the talent's fault, because we seem to be getting high-caliber players. And I don't want to throw the staff under the bus, and I definitely don't want to throw the kids under the bus because they didn't want to lose. No one goes into the game wanting to lose or not giving their best effort, but there's something there that I just can't understand. But keep up the great work, and chin up. We'll try and get one next week at Indiana. Thanks.
Appreciate the call from Pennsylvania. Sometimes it's hard to know when you're watching a game how many NFL players are actually in the game until years later. I mean, I assume in '97, when you go back and you watch the game, you're like, yeah. I don't think we knew Dhani Jones was going to be an NFL player in '97. He was just coming into his own. He just started playing. So that one was, you don't necessarily know that a guy is going to turn into, obviously Charles Woodson you do, but you don't necessarily always know. And Michigan lost NFL guys from last year's team that are, is an impact to this. But you look at over the last few years, guys like Devin Bush and Chase Winovich. But then last year and to this year, you're losing players, and then losing Ambry Thomas to me, that's the biggest loss. And we could talk about what the loss of Nico means to the offense and not having that big play receiver. They talked a little bit about during the game. But if you talk about the specific team, there are 2 more NFL guys that should be on the roster that aren't there. And Ambry Thomas in particular is a huge loss you see today, where what he would have been able to do on at least one side of the field. And if you at least have the one guy that you have utmost confidence in, then the other side you can figure out what to do, right? That's how you mask a deficiency, where you only have one side of the two where you really have an issue. When you have corner issues on both sides, it makes it much harder, because then you have to help with safeties, and that opens you up to the run game coming against you or short passes coming in front of you. It's just, when you're trying to mask too many deficiencies, it makes it a lot harder to stop anything. And when you have issues on both corner spots, that really makes it very difficult to game plan. I'm not giving Don Brown a pass. I think that I don't think he called the right plays at the right time on numerous occasions, and that's why you saw big explosive plays go against him. And there were a couple times where the kids just make bad plays. It just happens. But there are a lot of times where you look and you're like, why? Just trying to figure out why you call a certain thing in a certain situation. And we had a fair amount of those today, needless to say. A lot of those today. And they gave up too many big plays. They made Rocky Lombardi look like an All-American. And that's a task. 734-998-1050. You can email studio@WTK.com. You can tweet us at Michigan Insider. You're watching us on Ticket TV, on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You can post comments. We're reading those throughout the show, and in particular in the breaks, we're commenting on them as well. Let's go back to the phones and talk to Ron in Toledo. Hello, Ron. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Want to make a couple points. First off, you made a comment about scheme and everything like that, and I totally agree with what you said. And I do agree. It is about scheme. It's about coaching. And Michigan has just been out-schemed and out-coached in any meaningful game for a long time. And I think that's kind of my main point why I called, is on the defensive side of the ball. As much as I like Don Brown, as far as his coaching goes, I don't know if it's outdated or what have you, but my point is, and maybe you can comment on this, you put your DBs on an island, and you're doing the bump and run, and we're blitzing and blah, 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 trying to get pressure on the quarterback. Well, if these teams are constantly holding, and I'm not saying it was holding today and that was a problem, but we've seen this over the years where we have a great pass rush, we can't get to the quarterback, teams are holding, and we're leaving our guys on an island. And if you think about it, they don't call holding anymore. Was there holding called today? How many holding calls will be called throughout all of Saturday's games? Maybe 1 a game, 2 at the most. And what you're doing is leaving your defensive backs in a disadvantage. So I would rather not send everybody, because you're not going to get to the quarterback most of the time anytime, and we're at a disadvantage. So that's kind of my opinion on that. I definitely think there's an issue with Michigan players leaving, whether they're not going to play for bowl games or doing whatever, and these other teams seem like their players can't wait to play. So I'm not sure what the issue is there. And then the last thing, I personally don't think we play our best players. And we've seen it last year with Shea. At least today they did substitute a DB during the game, but I really doubt that we have our best players on the field. And I think you're going to see some transfers. I can't understand how Charbonnet can run 70 yards last week, and then since then the kid doesn't even have 10 carries. I don't know. That's what I have to say, but I think we definitely need to make a coaching change. If his last name wasn't Harbaugh, he would have been out the door already.
Appreciate the call. Let's go back to the phones at 734-998-1050. You can email studio@WTK.com. You can tweet us at Michigan Insider. Let's go down to Greg in Georgia. Hello, Greg. How are you?
Hey, so just 2 quick points, and I'm looking long-term. Graduated Michigan 82 and followed blue, forever. So, look, Harbaugh's a good guy, and he wants to win. But he's not the long-term answer here, obviously, now. We realize that. He's an NFL coach at best. He's not a college football coach for two reasons. One, he apparently can't get these guys prepared for a game like Michigan State, number one. And number two, when there are big games, he gets their sphincters so tight that they can't do anything. They can't do anything. He's an NFL coach. We need a coach. So this is point number two. We need a coach that can recruit. Okay? And that is recruiting not on, New Jersey, Massachusetts, or California. We need a coach that can recruit Michigan, Ohio, and then in the South. I live north of Atlanta. My God, I've spoken to so many people that said, look, if you had Michigan coaches down here in Alabama, Florida, especially Florida, Pahokee, where our quarterback's from, if you had more, integration down here, you'd get more of the top quality kids. And of course, academics is important, but you can find that quality here. And until we do that, coaching's 25% of it, maybe 20%, but recruiting and getting those kids in and staying in school, that's a huge, that's the remaining 80%. And until we can find that guy that can do that, we're gonna be, we'll always be 12 to 15 to 18. We're never ever gonna get even close to sniffing the college football playoff. That's all I had to say.
Appreciate the call, Greg, from down there in Georgia at 734-998-1050. You can email studio@wtk.com. You can tweet us at Michigan Insider. I wish it was as easy as just being in those states more and snap your finger and you get those kids to come up here and play football up north. But it's really hard to bring kids from the South up north to play football. That's just part of it. But they're trying, and but this recruiting is a part of it. There's a lot of questions moving forward that are, we see them on the comments coming through here on Ticket TV, and we're hearing it in the frustration in the voices of the fans that are calling in here on the show at 734-998-1050. There's a lot of, you can't pinpoint one thing that is the reason why today happened the way that it did. You can't say it's just coaching. That's definitely a big part of it. You can't say it was execution. That was definitely a part of it at times. You can't say it's just recruiting, but that's a part of it because it's a little. You have a game like today, and we've had, as I've said, too many of these in my time here on the show. It comes down to all of those aspects. And here we are, another frustration Saturday following a Michigan football game. Disappointed here on a Halloween late afternoon, early evening here in Southeast Michigan. One more phone call before we go to the break. We go to the Cattleman in Tennessee, if I had that right. Hello, how are you?
Hey, guys. Happy Halloween.
Thank you.
Just three quick questions. What's Harbaugh's buyout?
I'm not sure. It's in the millions. I'm not exactly sure what the number is. Off the top of my head, I have to go look it up.
Who's his agent?
He doesn't really work with an agent.
Okay. Last question, guys. Well, two-part question on the last one. Harbaugh's a good coach. Everybody knows that, but he's probably thinking about his future too. Who's open now? The Falcons, the Texans, blah blah blah. But give me some names. Are there some obvious names out there that you're going to be hearing about in the next 10 days? Joe Brady, or is there a local candidate? I'm assuming he's toast, and I'm just curious who you're going to be hearing about next week.
I appreciate the call. I couldn't even begin to tell you. Although I did get a buddy of mine texted me, and he wanted me to. I got to pull this one back up, so I keep forgetting the guy's name. Jamie Chadwell, the head coach from Coastal Carolina. He wanted me to put his name. He wanted to mention his name to me. So if my buddy John is watching, there's your mention of the coach. So there you go. Let's go. We'll sneak in one more before we go to the break. Let's go to Larry here on the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show on Sports Talk 1050 WTK, the Ticket, and on Ticket TV. Larry, what's up?
Hi, guys. I'm calling from Chicago, a long-time season ticket holder. Today might have been the most disappointing loss we've had in years. I was at the Appalachian State game. That was bad. I was at the MSU game, the black punt return game. But today's game was really disappointing. Our DBs just aren't with it. They're getting bad coverage. They're getting penalties. I was just very, very disappointed with the whole operation today. I don't know if we need to make changes on the coaching staff, but my goodness, we can't keep going on like that. Plus, I'm a Bears fan, and I'm going to have trouble again tomorrow because we got to play the Saints. So it's going to be a lost weekend.
I feel for you there, Larry, especially when I tell you that my guy Miz in the studio is a Saints fan. But, Larry, I appreciate the call here at 734-998-1050.
Larry, if it makes you feel any better, it's okay. Your Saints are without Michael Thomas or without Emmanuel Sanders or without a lot of weapons. But, hopefully for you guys, hopefully Nick Foles can orchestrate something. But appreciate you calling up, brother.
All right, we're going to step aside, take a break. More of the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show on the other side of the break here on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket and on Ticket TV.
Clear on radio.
The Cattleman.
Trust me, I had to double check. That's what he said as well too.
I worked with a guy in radio who back in D.C. who said that refused nicknames. Like, because people would have, people like to call in. A lot of times you don't want your real, just give a different name. I mean, we had, when I was in D.C., there was a guy, you could recognize his voice. He would call him with a different name every day. But he started settling on calling in as referring to himself as Ira, and it was really weird. And then, but I'm pretty sure his name was Barry. But that's really besides, But I don't get a lot of nicknames. As I said, I've worked with people that refuse to put him on the air, but I was curious what he had to say. I really don't know what the buyout figure is, but Jim has advisors. I don't think he actually works directly with an agent, and he doesn't do contracts during the season. Like, if I'm not saying that what one way or the other with the school or Jim, I'm just whatever the season is, he will not have a conversation about it until so this year it'd be at some point in time on December 19th or on December 20th. But I think that everybody needs to keep in mind that no matter what I guess if you win 8 games from here, which would be, or 7 games from here, which would be pretty remarkable, which I would not predict at all. But I mean, that I guess changes conversations. But I would not predict that, and that's probably not going to happen. But it's, Mike, that's actually a pretty good. How can people bring up recruiting as the problem after today? We obviously have out-recruited Sparty, so it's irrelevant within the context of today's loss. That's a very good point.
Mm-hmm.
The recruiting conversation can be the conversation about Ohio State, because what you're hoping is that Ohio State is that coming to the year, that's your only question mark, that you don't have question marks against ranked team on the road, which you beat in Minnesota, which they're proven to obviously not be all that much of a good team this year or a good team at all this year, and all their losses were a lot more significant than people realized. But you have to go out there and beat everybody else. When you play Penn State and Wisconsin at home, you beat them. You've shown that you can beat them at home. They've done that, in Jim's time here. They've shown they can win that they can win those games. Like, it's the matter of going and winning the big games on the road against ranked teams. So that's why today's game is reminiscent of only one or two others in his time here, and it's being the most disappointing loss of his time here, which makes this Halloween that much more difficult. It's hard enough when you have a 7-year-old and she can't go trick-or-treating and then she's surrounded by sad people. This is just a question for, how long till we're back, Miss?
A little over a minute.
So Adam's question here. It's an interesting question. It's an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
We should always expect to be elite. I think that you should never not expect to be elite. You're Michigan, you have an expectation to be elite. I think we should have a realistic expectation as to what Michigan has been. And the difference between Michigan now and Michigan in the 90s, not necessarily 97 per se, but in the 90s, when they were still competing for Big Tens, but also having 3 and 4 loss seasons, the biggest difference is that Ohio State is the best Ohio State has been maybe in the history of their program at a winning percentage. And they're at a level where it's only them, Alabama, and Clemson are at an elite. They're the top 3. And those 3 that's the thing, is Michigan has an Ohio State problem, and it's most glaring for Michigan because that's our arch rival. But everybody has an Ohio State problem, even teams that have pulled off upsets against them here and there. Ohio State is an elite program. There are 3 elite programs, consistently elite. But that is, Steven, it's a crazy stat. It is a crazy stat that to lose at home 3 times. And the amazing, all 3 of them have these most unique story, You have the trouble with the snap. You have the crazy weather game, and now you have the no fans during a pandemic game. Like, you just have these uniquely weird games, and they're 0-3 in them, and that's very bad.
Yep. Coming back on radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket and on Ticket TV. And those watching on Ticket TV see exactly how we're all feeling right now. Frustrating from David Finazzo. And he says, hold Jim accountable. He got out-coached in the game. It was a terrible game by the coaching staff. The players came out flat. I've said those things. I don't have any other power to hold him accountable other than say those things and open up the phones and let more people say those things. But I don't have the power to do a whole lot else. And since I said this, I guess it was during a break, but it might have been on the radio, but I've said this where I know that there's not going to be a coaching change during the season. So I'm like, for me to come on here and say make one, it doesn't make it makes no sense, because it's not going to happen. If I did or did not believe there should be one, it doesn't matter, because it's not going to happen in season, like based on everything I know and have heard. If I hear something differently, then I'll entertain those conversations, but it doesn't, like, it's a non-starter. So I'm not going to entertain that. But how do I hold the coach more accountable other than say he was out-coached? Mel Tucker came in here and he out-coached him, and you got to give Mel Tucker credit for that. That goes on Jim Harbaugh, that goes on Josh Gaddis, that goes on Don Brown, that goes on the assistant coaches. They got out-coached. What else am I supposed to say? I said that already. I've let a bunch of other people say it. I'm not really sure what else we're supposed to say, but that's all I can do to hold somebody accountable, because that's all the power that I have. I can say it, and I can open the phone lines for people to say whatever it is that they feel after the games. And same
Under
thing,
FCC
you can post it on social
regulations.
media. Yes, thank you, Mills. Within FCC regulations when we are on the air, because there are obviously rules that are in place.
I don't want to lose my job.
Yeah, neither do I. 734-998-1050. Let's go down to our buddy Eric in South Carolina. Hello, E. How are you, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
Oh, doing all right.
Hey, man, today was a tough one to take on the chin, man. But I'm going to tell you what's scary for me, okay? So basically, to define greatness of a coach is you should beat the people you're supposed to beat and occasionally beat people you're not supposed to beat. And with this particular staff, I just don't see it on a consistent basis. We basically watch a guy get beat by Rutgers last year and then outcoach our coaching staff, last week, and then basically outcoach our coaching staff the very next week. I basically watch, and I don't really want to say it's hardball, but I do know it may be time for Don Brown to go. And the reason why I say that is basically he's getting beat by the same pretty much plays by different teams. He got outcoached by Will Muschamp. This guy's terrible. And Mel Tucker got beat by Rutgers last week, but was able to beat this coaching staff the very next week. That is damning. When you look at it from any perspective you want to look at it, that should never happen. And it ain't even because they're playing with equal. They both got the same amount of bullets in the gun. Yeah, I know we have some young players at corner. We have some, a young player at quarterback. We got some young running backs. We got offensive line, this, that, the other. Yeah, I know that. But Michigan State is playing with less and got it done. And that's where we need to make a decision on. And like I said, I don't think 24 points is enough to win a ball game. But Don Brown cannot keep getting beat. There's no way a freshman receiver should get 200 yards receiving. I don't care. I would play corner. He wouldn't get 200 yards on me. And I'm 50 years old. So we just got to tighten it up, man. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that it may be time for Don Brown to go, because he gets beat by every team that we get beat by with the same particular play. And that may not be the same play, but some variation of the same play. He just cannot figure it out. Can't get it figured out all the time. He ain't going to get it figured out. So that's all I got, man. Ira, great job today. You and Miz, man, holding down, man. Go Blue, man. Love you guys.
Thanks, Dick. Appreciate it. Say hi to Ethan for me. And Freddie apparently heard that you were on, so he just barked at you as well and says hello to you down there in South Carolina. 734-998-1050. Email studio@WTK.com. You can tweet us at Michigan Insider. And obviously the conversation about Don Brown is going to be very loud this week. And Eric brought his thoughts to the table. He has echoed a lot of the sentiments that we've heard here on the show this afternoon following Michigan's 27-24 loss to Michigan State. We're going to go out to L.A. and talk to Paul here on the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show. Hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Doing all right.
Just some thoughts. I mean, you watch Jim Harbaugh all these years. I feel like we never hold him accountable the way we should. And I saw what you said about, what can we do? We can talk about it. But everybody likes to bring up Don Brown and the assistant coaches, offensive coordinators earlier. But at some point, don't you feel like the blame should be squarely on his shoulders? Nobody else, no excuses. You have to beat a team with mediocre talent without question. There's no excuses for it. It doesn't matter if it's the first game of the year, the 5th game of the year, the 10th game of the year. Your job should be in question. Don't you feel like accountability at that point matters? Year 6?
Appreciate the call, and to add on to David, who earlier before, so I'm glad he clarified. He didn't mean us about holding him accountable. I thought he was addressing it to us, but he's meant the athletic department. We don't know, obviously, behind the scenes, we don't know what is holding them accountable, and the fact is that Jim doesn't have a contract extension, so that, I guess, would be a way to hold somebody accountable by not giving him a contract extension and, maybe putting stipulations on giving him a contract extension, making changes, or maybe you don't give him the extension. I don't know what the conversations are like behind the scenes. I know that, things have changed a lot in February, March when they were having conversations at that point about an extension, then COVID hit, and so things changed a lot, but that actually is something that's important to have as a process to put into this conversation as well. The realism side for those that are saying that Jim Harbaugh should be fired today, or Troy who said 25 minutes ago or whatever. This is an athletic department that I don't remember the number, but it's a large number. It was projecting was it a $60 million? Since football did come back, it was about a $60 million loss this year. Yeah. And they had layoffs and furloughs and this, that, and the other. I mean, there are buyouts. Unless a booster steps in or boosters step in to give you the money to pay for the buyout, and because the coach's salary itself will pay for itself in the future because it's an endowed position. I don't know if it's fully endowed yet, but there's part of that is in there, and it kind of pays for itself. It's the buyout part. Like whoever your new coach is going to be assumes the spot of your coach's contract. It's going to be negligible as far as how much more or less it's going to be. But the buyout part of it, which I don't know what the exact number is, but if you get the buyout to a department that's going to project to lose $60 million plus in their in their budget this year and projected to lose more in their budget next year, it's these are things that I'm just invoking realism into the part of the conversation. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have that conversation, and it's going to be a very hot conversation amongst people and their friends and social media and us on the radio all week. It's going to come up a lot. I'm not disputing that it should or shouldn't, but a little realism into that part of the conversation. 734-998-1050. Email studio@WTK.com. Tweet us at Michigan Insider. One more here in this segment. Mustafa in Ann Arbor. Hello, Mustafa.
What's up, Adam? Miss, how you guys doing?
Doing all right, brother.
Much respect, man. I don't know how you guys doing this today. That's a tough day.
We do our best.
It's going to be a long year, man. It's going to be a long year. But this is what I want to say real quick. I'll slow down because of my accent so you can understand me. Urban Meyer doesn't like us. And for him to rave about Michigan this whole week, can't stop breaking down what we have. That tells me, man, the talent is there. All the coaches, good coaches, knows Michigan got some special. Unfortunately, those in place, and Marcus used to say it, and now Jimmy says it, are now putting our talent in the best possible situation, man, to just perform. And it's so frustrating. I'm sure there are a lot of coaches that are dying right now to have a quarterback like Joe Milton, to have this kind of speed. They all look alike, just good, but you can't utilize them. Next thing you know, Charbonnet be like, you know what? I'm going back to California. I didn't travel all the way to here for like 4 carries a day when I'm this good. And lastly, before I hang out, you got a lot of callers. The one thing you can see, look at in the game, to know that you don't have heart, you're not playing hard, when your players are dropping like flies. I understand Michigan State play dirty. That's what they do. But it was so frustrating, man, to see every couple of snaps see a Michigan player, man, wobbling off the field, it just bothers me. I'm not wired like that. And unfortunately, Devin Bush ain't here no more. Those dogs. This was a tough one, man, and it's gonna be a long, long year. I wish I can just flip pass out till next year, so I don't have to deal with all this nonsense. It's gonna be long, man. I mean, Jim Harbaugh gonna do a better job, man. This is not fair. And at some point, you're gonna lose the right to coach the team. I'm not talking about firing you or losing your job, but at some point, morally, you said to yourself, you know what? I lost the right to be the head coach at Michigan. We don't deserve this, man. We don't.
Thank you, Mustafa. Appreciate the call at 734-998-1050. And, over the course of Jim Harbaugh's tenure, and there's, everyone has their threshold of when they, get to a point of their optimism versus the pessimism. Are you more optimistic or more pessimistic about whether it's your team in the moment or the trajectory of your team? And there are people that their optimism level fell very quickly, and so they went to the other side very quickly, and they have been, vocal in certain things. And other people, their optimism level, it's just you get there on your own path, and you get there at your own time frame. But I question: is October 31st, 2020, on this Halloween, is this the day that Jim Harbaugh and or Don Brown lost that much more, if not all of, because there's not, you just never absolute, you never speak in absolutes, but where they lost maybe most of their remaining fans that still had more optimism than pessimism as far as the trajectory of the program? I think that's going to be an interesting question, and my hope is that something happens, and I don't know what it would be, but that something happens and they play a lot better over the next many weeks. But the optimism side and the pessimism side, I try to be as optimistic as possible. If you listen to this show over all these years, I have become a much more of an optimist than I ever had earlier on in my life. And I'm trying to hold on to my optimism. But today is the day that I think a lot of people, if they hadn't already gone from they're more pessimistic than optimistic, if they hadn't already gotten there, I think today is the day where they flipped to that other side, and now they are more pessimistic than optimistic, and that's not a good place to be, especially after just 2 games into the season. A season that it was a fool's gold thing, we have now learned, we obviously know, but after just 2 games, this is not how you want to enter the month of November. I see on here Mike Beebe asking questions, an update on Jalen Mayfield. I haven't looked to see about a whole lot of injury updates yet. Miz, you got something for me?
So I saw that one actually while you were talking. Isaiah Hole, who reports for Wolverines Wire, brought up a couple points. Cam McGrone, who left late in the first half, did come back on the field in uniform, but was not cleared to return back to the game. In terms of Jalen Mayfield, obviously it's very great, a lot of gray area when it comes to injuries. But from what it sounds like, it doesn't sound like it's too severe. Harbaugh did mention saying, quote, Jalen, he had X-rays after the game and they were negative. So,
all right, well, that's a good sign.
Take that with a grain of salt. I guess.
Guys, whether they left the game and came back, or left the game and didn't come back. I mean, you talk about McGrone, but you had Quiddy, but he came back in the game. But you had Giles got popped, and Van Sumeren and Baird and Mayfield. It was a that kind of game too, unfortunately for the Wolverines. As they dropped this one 27-24 to Michigan State. Both teams now 1-1 on the season. Next up for the Wolverines, they're at Indiana coming up on Saturday. The Indiana Hoosiers right now are in action at Rutgers. And I was going to give you a score update, but then my computer froze up on me, so that's not going to help. That's 23-13, 5.5 to go in the third quarter. Indiana's up on Rutgers.
23-15, actually.
Oh, 23-15. They just put Rutgers scored. I had not seen the conversion yet, so there you go. So, all right, we're going to take one more break, come back to on this side here, and wrap this up on a very frustrating day for the Maize and Blue Faithful. This is the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, Ann Arbor, Accumula Station, and on Ticket TV.
Clear on radio.
All right, yeah, it's thank you, Mike. Yeah, I know how they lost and who they lost to. Like sometimes it's just how they lost, sometimes it's just who they lost to, and sometimes it's both. And when it's both, it's it's brutal. Yeah, that was frustrating, disappointing, embarrassing, anger. I see all that. I feel you all. It's a good night to go have a drink. And that's about it. That's all I got. Go have dinner. I don't know. That's my plan. Go have dinner. Go spend some family time.
That's about it.
I haven't had a chance to spend a whole lot of time with my kid today since I've been working. So since I'm home already, it makes it easier to just kind of wrap this up here and go do that. But it's Honda. That's one of the things that I brought it up on and a little bit on the pregame show. We didn't get to all of it that I was going to talk about, but depth at a lot of different positions. Depth at a lot of different positions. Mm-hmm. When McGrone goes out, and we've had transfers, and I get the day and age of college football where you're going to have guys transfer if you're not starting because you think you can start somebody else, start somewhere else, and I get that. But yeah, that's generally the difference between like the different levels of teams in college football, and a lot of times, and it shouldn't have been the case this way today against Michigan State because you should still have more talent. Like that's the thing is you still have more talent than Michigan State. You should have still beaten them. Like you got outcoached. And there, you definitely at times you got beat. Like I'm not giving the players a pass at times, like biting on double moves and being having a guy wide open or something. That's not, it's not always on the coaches. Coaches don't drop passes that it may be a little high, but they're in the hands or something like that. It's not always on the coaches. That's why I always say it's always coaching and playing. Sometimes it's more of one versus the other, but it's always both. It's never one or the other, and you can't just slam your hands down and say, "Oh, if the coaching was great, they would have won today." Because I remember a game last year where you're like, "Oh, if the coaching was better today, they would have won." You're like, they had 8 drops. Like if you don't have 8 drops, you probably win a football game. And it's super frustrating. Needless to say, I get the frustration. It is still fun hanging out with all of you, Dennis, Dan. It's always great to hear from Dan, knowing that he's doing well. Tim, U of M fan TR, Tim in Three Rivers. It's always good to hang out with all of you and spend a little time. It's a little different than we used to do it. It's still fun to do it this way. It would be a lot more fun, and it was obviously a lot more fun before a loss. But we're still here. We don't duck. We don't hide. I don't envy Sam on Monday. I get tomorrow off at least. I don't envy Miz tomorrow because Miz is on tomorrow. Sorry, Miz. But remember.
Nope, this is all you get. This is all you get right there. That's all you get right there.
We just are optimistic fans. We know. We watch. We're not just optimistic fans. I think we should. And you're right, Sheldon. When McGrone left, Shipley actually did come in and play fairly well. Like I thought he made a couple of nice plays. It was nice to see. And you had those. And that's part of the frustration is you had these moments where you see a few plays here or there on both sides of the ball, but then 3rd and long they get a big play. Mm-hmm. And then right after the big play, they run to the line, they go, and they score. And you just never stopping that momentum.
All right, here we go. Coming back to radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show, presented by our friends at Alto Equipment Company. The final score for the Big House today was 27-24 Michigan State. Both teams are 1-1 now on the season, and it's going to be a long, long, long week. And I always say the weeks are longer at Schembechler Hall this week. I'm not so sure. Either way, it's going to be really long weeks all the way around. And for all of you that work around the state of Michigan and really around the country, around the world, whether it's family, friends, or whoever it might be, they're Michigan State fans, it's going to be a long week. It's going to be a long year. That's just kind of the way it is in college football. That's how things go. Our Michigan football coverage continues tomorrow with Miz and the crew on the playground at 10 a.m. Then on Monday, Sam and I are back at it at 6 a.m. with the Michigan Insider, including Monday morning quarterback Andy Minry. Wow. Interesting conversation coming up Monday with Andy, and just in general, going to be very interesting, the conversations that Sam brings to you on the radio coming up starting on Monday. Next week, it's another big road game, Michigan at Indiana, and the Hoosiers just scored again. They're now up 30-15. Extra point is good, so while they're up on Rutgers, it's going to be a doozy next week down there in Bloomington, Indiana. Kickoff from Bloomington is at noon. Coverage will start on Saturday at 8 a.m. with the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff on Sports Talk 1050, WTK The Ticket here on Ticket TV as well. I want to thank my guy Miz back inside the MDN studios, our game day producer, always in there all day. He does a terrific job, and had a chance to hang out with him. Even if it's virtual, always fun to hang out with our guy Miz. A belated happy birthday to him once again. And once again, the final score from the Big House today was 27-24, Michigan State over Michigan, and I'm going to try to not say that for the next or so day. I'm going to decompress for a little bit. Hope all of you can do the same thing as well. Take a couple deep breaths. We got a lot to talk about. Obviously, a lot moving forward. Talking about Michigan football after this disappointing performance today at Michigan Stadium. Be safe, everybody. Try to stay positive. Definitely test negative. We'll see you on the radio Monday morning. Try to have a happy Halloween. And as always, even in when you lose, go blue.